Alright, so it's been a minute since we've actually did a live stream like what we're about to do, and we're actually doing something a little bit different for this time around. So, hope you guys enjoy this long stream that we got for you, and this is going to be pretty much around basically TVs and just our discussion about some of the most talented YouTubers out there that we have watched that is very good at giving like TV information about like certain brands and models and such, especially like what you see right here on the screen, which are two very popular LG OLEDs with their newest one and then their previous year version of the exact same model. And we're also going to go down, show you the different pros and the cons and how ratings has got like the scores for each individual type of TV. So we're going to show you like pretty much like the current version and previous version on a couple different brands and models and such. Like right here, for an example, like the LG with their new C4 as well as their previous model being the C3. And then we're also going to like show you guys like how they got, the rating scores for like basically like a WOLED panel and a QD OLED panel and then a full array LED TV versus a mini LED TV. So we basically got a lot that we're going to be showing you on this stream, and we got a lot of discussions and such to share with you guys and whatnot. But you can let us know like in the comment section down below or something. We'll be able to see it like right here on our as a matter of fact, I gotta refresh this real quick, and there we go. So now I can see if somebody actually sends us a comment on our stream. I just have to go to basically Biolabs or whatever the heck it's called, Streamlabs OBS or whatever it is. That's what I was trying to figure out what it was called. So yeah, but yeah. So like OLED TV. Sorry, I had to look out my window there for a second because there's like people going around my house because I live in the town, But OLED TVs have actually been, from reviewers, the best TVs out there, like altogether. And then especially when it comes to like hardcore gaming enthusiasts out there, they've been touted to be the best for gaming. And it doesn't matter if you get like a LG or Samsung OLED, or even if you get a Sony OLED that has like slightly higher input latency, not like too much input latency, but even though they're still OLEDs, I've actually heard Sony OLEDs actually look pretty spanking fantastic. But hold on a second. Had a freaking like itch in my ear right there, so I had to freaking get it because it would just keep itching. But even if you go with like a Sony OLED, you're still going to get a like just a really good experience in terms of gaming, even with a few extra milliseconds that Sony TVs are known for having over like LG and Samsung's. I am going to still admit that Samsung and LG are still the best brands to get for basically gaming because they do have the best gaming features. I would actually say they have more gaming features than what a Sony would, but Sony is actually starting to pretty much give gamers some nice, really good features, especially like there is a feature that a Sony TV does have that even an LG or Samsung doesn't have, and you basically have the option to pretty much shrink your monitor down and basically get like, or well, TV, I don't know why I said monitor. You're able to shrink your TV to like a monitor size, so where like let's say you have a 55-inch, 65-inch, or a 75-inch TV of like Sony, and it doesn't matter if it's an OLED or a LED of theirs, and I think even their budget TVs as well, you can literally go to like screen size or something like that, and you can have the option to shrink the screen down to like a monitor size, so that way you can sit close to the TV like you're playing on a monitor. Now, that is a absolute cool feature that Sony TVs have that even LG and Samsung's don't have. But LG and Samsung's, and still in my opinion, are the best because honestly, like, they just give you the lowest input latency for gaming no matter what the odds are. And you can even get an LED TV for an example of theirs, especially like a Samsung QN90C. Like, you're going to basically not get as good black levels and contrast, but what's a trade-off is that you're going to get really nice bright highlights, especially like in HDR scenes. So even then, you're still going to get an ultimate experience, even if you go with a, you know, full array or basically a mini LED TV or whatever. But we got a few different like catalogs off of ratings.com that we're also going to like show you, and let us know in the comment section, and here and there we'll actually pull up to see if we got like anybody watching our stream and if somebody actually sent us a comment or whatnot. So yeah, it definitely has been a minute since we've actually done this. I don't even think we've actually did a full-on like long stream like this at this new location that we have moved to. Not like location like a new town or nothing, but our new place that we have moved to basically the end of 2023. Now, we did, which I'm sure that if you have been a subscriber of our channel for quite some time, you know that our last place that we lived in, we just got like kicked out for basically no reason. Like, they just said we couldn't sign a lease and all that, and man, we were struggling. And right now, we just got incredibly lucky. Now, we don't make that much money, so we have to have like HUD Section 8 to help, you know, with our rent and such. And right now, I can just like tell you, like, it was insanely hard. And I was actually just at the HUD office to like talk to them about, you know, future plans, and also had to do like some stuff that I had to take care of, like errands wise. And I was basically told that there has been a lot of people that have lost their, you know, HUD voucher and such. I was about to say shit there for a second. I should have just went on ahead and said it. But yeah, we did get incredibly lucky, and I'm so freaking blessed. But that's not what this whole stream is pretty much about. But I just wanted to share those out there with you guys. That's the whole reason why we haven't done a stream, especially with our new place that we have moved to a little while ago. But so starting out, right here is two really popular LG OLEDs. These are the exact same model, being the C series. It's just the newest 2024 model and then the previous 2023 model. Now, this is the score that Ratings has gotten for both of these TVs, and honestly, they're pretty much identical, even though looks like C3 has one leg up in the TV shows category, and TV monitor as well. And then HDR gaming, well, HDR movies, that looks like the C4 is a bit of a leg up too. So, but when it comes to like sports and just basically gaming, they're pretty much even. Like, you got like right here, video games, a 9.4 on both, and HDR gaming, which is a 9.1, which that's incredibly good for gaming and such. And different material, as you can see from this, although I do like what the C4 looks with all that like better material. And honestly, it does kind of look slick, in my opinion. But then the C3 also still looks pretty slick with having a like solid like gray matte finish or whatever the heck it's called. And it does look like the C4 is got less, what's it called? I forget what they call that. It's a, crap, I can't actually think of it off the top of my tongue right now. Alright, so far nobody's not watching as of yet. But right here you can tell like how incredibly thin that the TV actually, or the both TVs actually look, and that's to be expected with OLEDs. OLEDs are going to be the most thinnest like paper type of TV out there, and it's actually really impressive with how good that the quality is of these, and you're getting really nice thin, like, that's what it's called. What these are called right here, they're called bezels. So what I was going to say is it looks like the C4 is a tiny bit like shorter on its bezel, so it looks a little bit more sleeker, but the C3, it's still really good overall no matter what the odds are. And then here's blooming, contrast, and local dimming, and as you can see, because they're OLEDs, they're all going to be both a 10 out of 10 on all three of them, so like contrast, blooming, because when it comes to OLEDs, you're going to get the deepest blacks. So even with, like, if you look at this photo for an example, like, this is a white background right here, but once you see this shade, like on an LED TV, you're going to see, like, for an example, like, you can just see from the details of the rocks being, like, a little bit more, like, bluish. But instead, with an LED TV, you're going to see, like, a little bit of, like, some blooming, like, you're going to see some whites, like, darkening as you go through from a white to basically the black area. But on an OLED, as soon as you go directly from a white to the black, you're not going to see no lights, like, shining through of, like, say, like, that local dimming zone of that area or whatever. So that's what's nice about OLEDs, is that you basically get true blacks no matter what it is across the board. Even if you get, like, the brightest OLED out there, you're still going to get true blacks and just basically true colors no matter what the odds are. So yeah, this photo does really just actually just give you the best overall. So I'm going to go back and such. And contrast and dark details in the game mode definitely does look, they're pretty much identical as well. The HDR honestly looks pretty good on both. I actually do think that the C4 kind of in a way does look a bit better than the C3, but the C3 actually still has good freaking colors. Now, these are pretty much identical if you honestly look at them side by side. It does look like the colors in HDR look a tiny bit better on the C4. Like, I can actually tell that, like, the grass is actually a bit more greener in, like, this picture right here over the C3's HDR. But OLEDs are always going to look good. So no matter what, even if you have a C3, like, this is still going to look insanely beautiful. Like, you're still going to be impressed by how good that the picture looks. And pretty much good on the PQ tracking and whatever. Brightness is pretty much identical across the board, and the color gamut's also going to look good across the board, as long as they have it that says, like, when you look right here, it says wide color gamut. As long as they have yes, and if you look at the colors and you look at all this, no matter what the odds are, as long as the DCI P3 color space is, like, right near 100%, you're going to get true amazing colors no matter what the odds are. Now, this is a little bit different. This is for, like, a basically HDR content, but these, like in the 70s, is still quite excellent no matter what the odds are. Let me see if I got anybody watching. And so far, nobody is watching just yet. I just want to keep checking to see if there's, like, anybody that actually watches our stream. And then color volume is, like, how bright and dark that, like, a certain types of colors get. Like, you can see, like, not like true yellow, red, or anything like that, but like some sorts of, like, lime green. Like, you can see, like, darkest blue / green or whatever. So it's not like each individual color itself, but it's, like, in between the colors, I should say. And then this is gray uniformity, which OLEDs are actually known for actually having some of the best, like, even uniformity than any other TV out there. Like, if you get an LED TV, you're going to see most likely that there will be some spots that are going to look darker and some spots that are going to look brighter. So it's not going to literally be like a solid straight, like, even like color or even picture, no matter what the odds are. OLED's definitely, they're not perfect, but they do, like, they're almost close to perfect is what I'm trying to say. Like, when you look at a gray uniformity, which is basically the best way to see if there is bright and darker spots on certain parts of the screen, no matter what the odds are, you're always going to have something like that for an LED TV, no matter if it's got really good uniformity or what. But an OLED is always going to look a bit more basically even across the board. Like, once you look at this picture, like right here, it's just a solid green, or not green, it's a solid gray. I don't know why I said green, but you could say something for that one. So yeah, but when you look at this, it's going to be like solid gray, and it will show that if it looks solid like this looks, then that means that if you go to like YouTube and you pull up a solid color, whether if it's blue, white, or red for an example, it's going to look as good and even as what this gray uniformity looks. So honestly, like, OLEDs are definitely going to give you the best even, like, uniform picture of all. And good viewing angles. That's actually surprising. The viewing angles is a tad bit better on actually the C3 than it is on this C4. But the C4 is still almost near perfect no matter what the odds are. So even then, you won't have to worry about a whole lot there. So it looks good on the C4 just as well. So the viewing angles is good. Reflection handling actually looks about pretty much identical once you look at them. HDR, native gradient, looks pretty even too across the board. Now, if you're wondering what gradient is, which probably most of you do know at this point, but for those of you that do watch this stream, if you don't know what gradient is actually, it's actually like if you look at, like, look up here at the gray in the gray, the black going to gray area that's above the white. If you look right here, you can see some like Van Danning or whatever the heck that's called of some lines where you'll see some like lines from darker to bright areas. That's what gradient handling is pretty much called, or basically is, I should say. I don't know why I said called, but once you look at the top gray, black to gray area, that is basically what gradient handling is actually considered. So it's basically like if you're playing a video game or watching a TV show where you're looking at pretty much a sunrise or a sunset, where you'll see the brighter as you get close to the sun and then, you know, darker as you move away, or the sun going down and then as you look toward it, you can just see, like, that's pretty much what gradient is basically like if you see lines like that from like brighter to darker shades of the color. And sort of low quality content, that's pretty much good across the board, and basically the upscaling is also good, and then the response time. So like you can just tell how good the OLED absolutely really looks on these. And then this TV, as you know, it's only capable of 120 hertz, and then you got the C4 that can actually go up to 144 hertz, which ain't really going to be a super big deal once you think about it. And got a freaking itch on my ear yet again. I know, it's just weird that we have to keep itching our ear and such, so sorry about that. It's just odd, I know. But we're almost done with the first set of OLEDs that we got. And then here's where OLEDs absolutely shines, especially in terms of gaming. So if you look right here, like, these are all the different resolutions and frame rates of like the hertz and such, you're basically getting 10 milliseconds at 60 hertz at 1080p, as well as 4K, and as well as 1440p. So like you really can't beat that. Then once you go to 120 hertz, things get even better, which is not a huge difference, but still it's an improvement. It gets even better with input latency being a bit lower on milliseconds, and it doesn't matter if you play 1080p or 1440p or 4K, and it doesn't matter if you play on a PC or console, as long as you're playing at a resolution or the frame rate of any of these, no matter which device you play on, you're going to get that amount of response time of the input latency on pretty much any of these. So, like, let's say you play on a PlayStation 5 and you're playing Modern Warfare 3, the newest Call of Duty out on the market right now, and you turn on the 120 hertz mode in the game. This is basically what you'll be getting, is you'll be getting like 5.5 or 5.3 milliseconds of response time if you have one of these two LG models, either the C3 or C4, and then pretty much with other LG models as well. Alright, I'm going to see if there's anybody watching. So far, no comments, nobody yet watching. So, but when you look at all that, that's what the LG OLEDs look like. So, pretty good for both of these OLEDs. Now we're going to get to our favorite, the best overall type of TVs out there, and that is QD OLEDs. Now, Samsung has started making OLEDs back in 2022, and QD OLED is what they started with. And personally, I'm just going to be flat out like, spoiler alert, I'm going to flat out give you guys the answer. QD OLED is absolutely going to be the best overall, because you're going to get the best brightness, the best vibrancy, the best colors, the best clarity, and even to an extent, the most prettiest picture for gaming. Honestly, even though these LG OLEDs are still fantastic, I still would recommend one of these two, because QD OLED is absolutely really good and is fire. Another thing I forgot to mention too, if you live in the US and you are wanting to get if you're wanting to get the S90D, if you do decide to get the S90C, you're pretty much in luck. But in the US, the S90D actually has 6 sizes. There's actually 2 additional sizes with this model for 2024. There is a 42-inch and a 48-inch, and then there is still the newest 83-inch that came in the S90C, but you got the 42 and 48-inch. Now, if you live in North America, in the US, or whatever, you're going to be basically getting a WOLED panel on the 42, 48, and 83-inch model of the S90D. But if you get the 55, 65, or 77-inch size of the S90D, you're going to basically get the QD OLED panel. So, honestly, even if you wanted, like, let's say you're choosing between a 77-inch or an 83-inch, but you want to go bigger, like, let's say the 83-inch, I would still, honestly, if you want the best picture possible, honestly, for 6 inches lower than an 83-inch to get a 77-inch, it's not going to be that much huge. I would still honestly get a 77-inch with a QD OLED panel rather than get an 83-inch for a WOLED panel. And this is another thing I'm also going to mention as well. Now, there is a YouTuber that we've talked about multiple times on this channel. You probably know him, either not just from us, but probably from other countless of content creators out there. And I actually did just watch one of his videos just a little bit ago. I seriously hate this guy with a passion, and I know you're probably wondering, well, why do you still watch him? It's just very interesting is what I'm trying to say, to watch his content, to see what he says. And he was basically basically calling out KG, Tech with KG, who actually does like really good comparison on TVs like OLEDs, LED TVs, and such like that. But this is what Quantum TV's BS is. He thinks he's number one, and he thinks he's always right, and he always likes to call out these other TV enthusiasts because they don't agree with his take when his take is absolute terrible. Like, I'm going to be honest. I am not a very good calibrator kind of TV kind of person, but I can honestly tell you that I actually know about TVs probably better than what he actually looks. Now, I ain't going to completely disarm the guy, but there are some cases I do agree on some things that he has said. He does say that QD-OLED is better than a WOLED panel. He is 100% right. But when he says that LG is dog crap because they haven't done a QD-OLED panel, now that's completely disgusting. Because LG is a different company. So they make their own type of TV. And he doesn't understand that individual brands, they don't make the exact same panels because, like, like, why would you want to, like, let's say you look at a Sony, you look at an LG, and you look at a Samsung, and yet they look exactly the same. That's not good business because it's confusing the consumer. That's why they don't do it, and that's what he needs to understand. But because LG, Sony, and Samsung, like the three most popular brands, like, even though Sony buys LG's OLEDs from them and puts it in their TVs, they still have some differences, like better processing and probably more accurate colors and better, like, clarity. But LG's have game mode that has better gaming features and such and all that, and has a little bit different of their picture. That's actually what helps the consumer pick what is best for them. But if the brands, if they did the exact same in each individual TV that Best Buy had that was like on the wall that they have when you go in the back, and you literally look at all three of the TVs, like from one, like let's say the Sony A80L, the LG C4 or C3, the Samsung S90C, if you look at all of them and they're literally identical, it would just basically hurt the other brands and such, and then it would just basically be like confusing to the consumer. So I think it's honestly smart that LG is still sticking with WOLED panels, even though I think that the Samsung QD OLED panels are better, but the LG WOLED panels do have a feature that the Samsungs don't, and that's Dolby Vision, so that's kind of like where it makes them pretty darn even. So right there is another advantage. So you got QD OLED from Samsung without Dolby Vision that's going to give you better vibrancy and colors and whatever and be a bit brighter overall panel. But then you got a WOLED panel from LG that ain't going to be as good but still very good overall. But you get Dolby Vision as basically an even trade. So really, when you look at it like that, it just makes TVs an even trade, so then people can be like, oh yeah, I'd like to get a Dolby Vision type of TV. Then they go with an LG. But then the people that want the most prettiest, cleanest picture, colorful picture of all time, then they're going to want to go with a QD OLED. So you kind of get where we're coming from. But Quantum's BS thinks that all LG is bad because they stick with one panel. It's like, bro, they're not going to change the TVs. It's going to be confusing to the consumer if the brands have three different types of TVs that look exactly identical. Like, that's just the reality of it. Like, why do you think there's console gaming? Why do you think there's a PlayStation? Why do you think there's an Xbox? Why do you think there's a Nintendo? Because they have their own games, controllers that make them appealing, so people can pick which one they would want. So yeah, it's just nuts at this point, really. But minus all that, But once you look at a QD OLED TV, like these are the two QD OLEDs, the S90D and the S90C, and you can tell like gaming is going to be pretty much almost identical to the C series OLEDs, but right here is an advantage that you will get with QD OLEDs when it comes to gaming, is that the HDR is going to be a lot more vibrant. And honestly, I think HDR highlights have never looked better than on a QD OLED TV from Samsung. So these are pretty much the stuff that you're going to see. Oh wow, even the build quality is actually a bit touch better on last year's model. And then as they're being OLEDs, you're going to see that they're going to be pretty much the same. And then the same with contrast and dark details. Now, this is where, like we were showing you, that HDR gaming is going to be a bit better, but it's really HDR. Oh my gosh. I don't know why this ear keeps literally itching. It's so freaking annoying, bro. Like, it's so freaking annoying. But when you look at this, this is where QD OLED absolutely shines and has an advantage over regular WLEDs, is that you can actually get HDR brightness way punchier. Like if you look at these pictures, they're a lot brighter. And then once you look at game mode, honestly, game mode's going to give you some nice vibrancy. Although this picture, like right here, like if you look at this, honestly, oh yeah, that's why it does look better. Or well, no, I take it back. This is not the S95D. I was almost thinking that the S90D was pretty much the S95D with its coating. But then again, it still looks better on the S90C personally. And then, ooh, the PQE2F tracking looks actually better on the S90C. And then even the colors are like just 1 point up, but they're pretty much identical when you really look at it. This is definitely where it's a bit better, but then again, not really too much difference. So it's pretty much the same. Color volumes acts literally the same across the board. And post calibration and gray uniformity, which like we mentioned is basically how even that the picture looks if you're on a solid color. Black uniformity looks good. The viewing angles are pretty much good on them. Now, this is another area, even though that these are both good, this is one area that the S90D actually has some of the best grading handling like ever. Like once you go to this, like you can just look how good that it is, going from like a solid dark color all the way to the brightness of the color. Yeah. This is definitely really good gradient. But even on this, it's also really good too, but you'll still see some sorts. I actually do see a tiny bit in the greens, like in the darker area of the greens. But as you get up to the brighter spots, it don't look that bad. The blue actually looks pretty darn good in the blue. So, yeah. And this is also another area that QD OLED does shines over regular WOLEDs, is the gradient handling is always going to be better on pretty much a QD OLED. Now, these are another areas that, like, the QD OLEDs fall a little short, especially when it comes to Samsung's processing, but I don't really think that's going to be a huge deal for some people. But upscaling, the sharpness processing is still pretty darn good overall in both. The S90D is a touch better, but the S90C still can upscale decently good, like low resolution 480p such. So there's that also. And honestly, the response time's going to be good. So yeah. Now both of these can do 144 hertz, but the difference is that on the S90C you can only do 4K up to 144 hertz. If you play 1080p or 1440p, you can only get up to 120. But that's not going to be a huge issue at all. And then once we showed you the LG C-Series OLEDs, if you look at the input latency, dude, like it's identical. Like, look at that. 1080p 60 hertz is 10.1 milliseconds on pretty much both models. 5.3, 5.4 at 120, 5.5, 5.3 on a 120 1440p, 10.0 on 4K 60, 10.1. Like, look at this. Like, these are gamers like dream. These are what gamers have actually wanted for so long when it comes to console gaming on a TV, and in some cases PC as well. They wanted to be able to pretty much, like, they want to be able to play console gaming and whatever and get like a monitor type of input latency to get responsive feel of gaming. So when you look at QD OLEDs, they're almost identical to a regular OLED, but there is some advantages that a QD OLED has, like better colors, better HDR brightness, and better HDR native gradients and such. It's hard to pronounce that word, just for a heads up. And okay, so minus the OLED parts, we're going to show you, actually, we're not going to show you these two that we did originally plan. Let's just go on ahead and let's show you the two differences of an LED TV and what they offer. So right here we have a full array Sony X90L type of TV, and then right here we have a Samsung mini LED TV such as the QN90D. Now, mini LED, what it's going to give you is better brightness and just overall, like, better picture quality. My phone keeps going off, so I have to, like, go on here and see what's going on. My friend actually just texted me. He probably might be actually watching my stream, to be honest. Let's see. And we'll see what he says. And oh, maybe he's not watching. He's just messaging me. Let's see here. I'm not working today. He might actually want me to possibly get on Warzone with him here in just a bit, which that's what we originally planned on doing. And hopefully my other dude's going to get on too. But as I was saying, with a mini LED type of TV, you're going to get better brightness and slightly better contrast than what you would get on a full array. And to an extent, you will get some better local dimming because of the dimming zones and such are going to be a lot smaller because of it being a mini LED type of TV. But that doesn't mean that the full array is not bad. But once you look at the video games and all the categories, you can see that, like, the Samsung does have a higher score on most of the other stuff than compared to the Sony X90L, with it being a mini LED. But when you look at the Sony, it's still green, and it's still got very good, like, scores for everything. Honestly, I was really impressed with the X90L when we got it just in April 2 months ago. The X90L, honestly, from a QD OLED TV, like, I made a video doing the review, and I literally mentioned that I would not be disappointed one bit going from a QD OLED TV to a Sony X90L. Like, the Sony X90L, like, the colors, contrast, brightness, it was almost as good as what a QD OLED would look. So that's kind of like what makes it a bit hard. If once we get our two other OLEDs that we are planning on getting, it is going to make it tough to see if we want to get rid of our Sony X90L and our TCL QM8. But I do know that we're going to get rid of our X90K Sony and our Hisense U8H. Like, that's just going to happen altogether. But these are the two different types of LED TVs, and wow, that's kind of surprising. The Sony has better build quality. But once you look right here at the contrast details, like, they're pretty much good on both. But once you look at them, like especially with local dimming turn on, you can tell that the Samsung S90D, and honestly, the S90D actually is a touch better than the S90C or the QN90C. I know I said the S series. I meant the QN90D does look a bit better than the QN90C from last year. Like, I honestly don't remember this getting 100 on the S, or I don't know why I keep saying S, QN90C from last year. If I remember correctly, I think that the QN90C was only 83,000 to 1. So this is definitely a huge upgrade with the QN90D. So I will have to give it to Samsung with credit with this one. So, and then here's blooming. So when you look at the differences, like, we're going to show you this. If you look closely, you can see that with the subtitles at the bottom, you're seeing some little bright blooming areas that is like right above. Like if you look right here above the word subtitles, above bars, you can literally see some grayish, bluish, like light shining through that dark area of the screen. Now, this is not as bad on a QD or on a mini LED, but once you go to like a full array, you can see it's a lot worse. So like you can see a good portion of the area of the word subtitles and bars right here. You can see that there is quite a lot of blooming around the word subtitles and the word bars. But when you go to a mini LED, it's a lot more not as bad. But when it comes to LED TVs, you're always going to get some sorts of blooming no matter what the odds are. But with OLEDs, and it doesn't matter if you get a QD OLED or a regular W traditional OLED, you don't have to have, you're not going to see blooming on anything on a dark scene with a bright area showing up in that dark scene like this, for an example. You will not see any blooming whatsoever. So right there is a demonstration of that. They definitely all have just okay local dimming and such, but you've seen what we were basically showing you. But here's another area that especially a mini LED shines over OLED and full arrays. Like if you look right here, the HDR brightness is the highest that you can ever see it, and just like look how punchy and vivid and bright that looks. That is insane. And then once you look at this one, that's as pretty as like real life. So pretty much a mini LED is really going to give you some nice brightness. This, oh my, this is actually shocking right here. Like, look at this. The HDR highlights are a little bit better on the X90L. Like, look at that. Like, that still looks pretty darn good overall. But when you look at this, it's much more brighter. Like, holy crap. That actually blew my mind, surprisingly. But, honestly, yeah, it's just what it is. But then here's another area that mini LED really does shine, and this is where it shines a lot, is you get better brightness, because if you look right here, this is only capable close to 800 nits, but the QN90D is capable of over 1300 nits of peak brightness. Now, color gamut is going to be good as long as it says yes that they have right here. You're going to be promising with nice, beautiful, bright, rich colors. But OLED is definitely going to give you the better overall colors, but QD OLED is going to give you the like greatest of colors that you can ever imagine. So really, if you want the prettiest colorful picture of all time, QD OLED, like I'm going to probably say it again from time to time again, QD OLED, if you want the best colorful picture, is where you want to get. or where you want to go, is what I'm trying to say. You want the most prettiest colorful picture. QD OLED is got you covered when it comes to colors. But color volume is going to be good. And then, see, this is another area. So, like we were talking about, like gray uniformity. So, if you look very closely at this, you can just see there is some little like bright spots that are shining through, like little dots slash lines across this screen. This is where OLED shines, no matter if you get a QD OLED or a WRGB, or not RGB, a WLG OLED is what I'm trying to say. So no matter if you get a QD OLED or a WOLED, this is where any OLED shines, is you ain't going to see like so much of dirty screen effect. So like when you look at this screen right here, you can just see that there is little brighter, darker areas and like lines and dots throughout the entire screen. But there are some LED TVs that can actually look pretty good. I am going to say that the Samsung QD, or not QD, but the Samsung Mini LED, the QN90D right here, actually ain't quite as bad as the Sony, but you can just tell, you can still see it, especially like in the very center up top. You can see a little bit of some darker shades right up here. But that's one area that a OLED, I was about to say QD OLED, but that's one area that an OLED is always going to shine, is you're not going to have to worry about dirty screen effect whatsoever. And honestly, it's what we like. Now, when it comes to black uniformity, like this is just without local dimming turn on, and you can just see like the blackness minus the little like plus sign of this whatever. You can just see how bright that the black looks. It's pretty much blue almost, and even on this it looks pretty much blue as well. But if you go to here and when you look at it, you can see a lot of blooming around this pretty much plus symbol. So if you look around this, you can see so much blooming coming out of it. Now this is on the Sony X90L full array TV, but we move over to a mini LED and you can still see it, but it's a lot less noticeable and it's a lot more smaller. But like we mentioned, with an OLED, you will not see no blooming around any bright little area. Like this, for an example, it's going to be completely pitch black across the whole screen, and that plus little center thing is going to literally look solid white, and you're not going to see blooming around it. So OLED is definitely, really is superior. Now, because these are VA/ADS panels, the viewing angles, yeah, I said angles or whatever, but the viewing angles, as you can see right here, they're not the greatest. So if you have like a wide seating, for like family and friends, like let's say you invite people over to watch like WWE wrestling of like a pay-per-view or sports like football, and you got pretty much a couch that's literally sitting in the corner all the way around, these TVs would not be the greatest because of viewing angles. I messed up again. Gosh dang it. And so far nobody has watched yet. We're about done with this stream, honestly, anyway. But reflection handling, as you can see, it's going to be better on the higher end mini LED Samsung TV because it is a lot more premium. And it's just going to be okay on the Sony. And honestly, wow, even the gradient handling looks better on the Sony, so the HDR highlights are going to look a slightly bit better. And then another area that the Sony actually achieves is low quality content smoothing and the upscaling sharpness processing. But the Samsung actually looks pretty darn good of upscaling just as well, actually surprisingly. And response time is going to be pretty much even and all that. And they're both capable of 120 hertz. And oh wow, The Samsung is actually capable at 144 hertz, but the Sony's not. And then here's where the Samsung actually shines over the Sony is the input latency. Like if you go here, you're getting at 4K or 1080p 60 hertz, you're getting 18 milliseconds of response time of input latency. Now that's still very low for a responsive like gaming experience, no matter what the odds are. But once you look at the Samsung, with it being almost double of the response time quicker, this is where gamers will pick the Samsung over the Sony because the input latency is even lower and it's going to basically be a lot quicker than what the Sony would. But the Sony is still not bad overall. Now, we're going to move on to our last bit of TVs that we're going to show you. We was going to show you like the Hisense current new model and then the previous same model from the year before, as well as TCL. But honestly, we're just not going to do that. So here is two OLEDs. These are OLEDs that we're currently gaming on. We're gaming on the S95B and the LG-C1, which the LG-C1 is right behind us, as you can see in our webcam. And then the S95B is the one that we have right here in our gaming room and such. So we're going to show you the differences between a WOLED versus a QD OLED. So once you look at this, like you can just tell QD OLED has definitely got the higher rating. Like when mixed usage, it's 8.8 versus 8.4, and then 8.0 versus 8.4 for TVs. Then sports is going to be better on QD OLED. Gaming's going to be very close to being the same, but you can still see, especially right here, that even the HDR gaming, it's going to be better on the QD OLED than, like we mentioned, QD OLED when it comes to HDR highlights is going to give you more punchier highlights and colors in terms of HDR 10 video and such. So it's going to be better. And if you look at these like uniform pictures, this is what you don't want to worry about. Like, those are just not good. When you look at this, like look at this off the LG-C1 for an example. This is what you will get, which is called burn-in, if you leave static elements like this on the screen. Like let's say you're on the news channel that has this element at the bottom of the screen. If you leave your TV on when you're not home, or like let's say you're at work, or this is all you watch for the entire day, if you leave your TV on for hours upon hours in a daily basis that has something like this on the bottom of the screen, that will eventually start to look like this, to where it's burned into the screen. But if you use your TV regularly and you basically have like different content, like let's say you watch like several to a few different TV shows, or you're a gamer like us and you play anywhere from like a selection of a few to hundreds of thousands of games, then you won't have to worry about burn-in. You will not have to worry about burn-in whatsoever on an OLED. But these are really good OLEDs. I'm still very surprised with how good that they are. And like, because they're OLED, they're going to be 10 out of 10 for contrast, blooming, and local dimming, sort of. Contrast details is the same. And now, like we were talking about, this is where a QD OLED really shines over a regular one, is in the HDR brightness category. You can just see that the LG-C1 has just okay brightness, but the QD OLED shines even more. And it's the same difference here when it comes to pretty much like gaming mode. And honestly, look at this. You can even tell how much punchier and vibrant that the QD OLED looks in game mode. Like, look at that. Like, that looks good, but once you look at this one, that's a bit more brighter and more realistic. And the same thing goes for this one. If you look at that, and then now look at this, that's a lot more realistic. If you was basically in this kind of town, that's how that would look. Like, let's say you're right there on that road in that town at nighttime, that's how bright that the lights of this would look. So when you look at that, and then if you look at this, it's a lot dimmed on this screen, but once we go to there, just look how bright that looks. And that's how bright it would look in real life if you was actually there. So QD OLED in terms of HDR brightness is going to be a lot more realistic than what an LG WOLED would. But these LG OLEDs, when you look at them, it's like you're in a movie theater kind of experience. So it's not going to look as real, but it's going to look like a cinematic, like a movie theater, for an example. It's going to look naturally cinematic. So even though LG's OLEDs don't get as bright in HDR, they still look absolutely good. Now, this is where some OLEDs absolutely fall short over an LED TV. It's the brightness. The brightness is what falls on some OLEDs. Not all OLEDs. Just some OLEDs do. And then here's where QD OLED shines again over a WOLED is the colors. Like if you look here, it's still good on both, but the LG only scores an 8.6, and then you got a QD OLED that scores a 9.4. So right there is where a QD OLED shines, and then same thing goes with color volume. It shines better on a QD OLED. And then right here also, no difference in terms of the gray uniformity, but because that we showed you how an LED TV would look with dirty screen effect on an LED type of TV, just look at this. This is a straight, even gray color. You don't see barely any bright areas on certain parts of the screen. It's a completely solid gray. But you will still see some, just like some tiny areas, but you have to really look for them in order to make them out. But if you sit far back, like let's say you have a 65-inch or 77-inch QD OLED TV or just a WOLED TV, and you sit far back, you are not going to see a difference. It's going to look a solid, even color. So right here is where OLED definitely shines, like I mentioned again. And then reflections are better on OLEDs. Now, when you look at this is another area that a QD OLED shines over a WOLED, is the native HDR gradients. It's going to look better. And that's going to be pretty much okay. As well as this, which is going to be better on a QD OLED. Now, this is another area I also have to point out. No matter what the odds are, when you get an OLED TV, you are absolutely going to get the cleanest picture ever. We made a video just the other day talking about how a 4K OLED is going to look sharper and crisper than an 8K LCD TV because of having, like we mentioned, the best contrast and local dimming and such. That's individual pixels themselves and not a gigantic dimming zone of a light of some sort. No matter what the odds are, clarity is going to look both on OLEDs, and even our LG C1 still looks pretty darn clean as a kite. But this is where a QD OLED definitely shines a bit, like it's a little bit better than a regular WOLED, is the clarity is going to be better. A QD OLED is going to look a tad bit crisper and cleaner than what a regular OLED will look, even though a regular OLED looks already crisp and sharp as it already can do. But that's another area that a QD OLED can actually outpace a WOLED panel. And then here's another thing that also we have to show you guys real quick. This is the differences of the pixel layout and colors with a WOLED and a QD OLED. When you look at a WOLED, you can just see that it's mostly the bright whites that shine really through. This is a white subpixel layout, and that's what the W stands for, as you can see. And then when it comes to QD OLED, it's a RGB layout under a blue subpixel kind of layout. And as you can see, once you look at the colors, like we'll go back and look at this. So you can just get the idea by looking at these photos. If you look at this for an example, like take a minute and look at that. And then now when you go and you look at this, you can just tell, yeah, like this just will give you the answer of how a QD OLED is going to give you much more brighter, vibrant, punchier colors. Just by looking at these alone, you can just be like, okay, yeah, the LG will look decent, but then once you look at this picture right here, you can just be like, oh yeah, I can definitely tell that a QD OLED, I can just tell by looking at this picture that the colors are going to look so much brighter and punchier. And you're not even looking at a QD OLED TV at all. You're just looking at its subpixel layout of the RGB individual layout. So yeah, you don't even have to look at a QD OLED TV to experience that. You can just literally look at this picture right here from a WOLED panel of the subpixel layout, and you could just be like, okay, yeah, a QD OLED, I can just tell by this picture, a QD OLED is going to look way brighter. Like, it just gives you the answer because you can just tell the colors. So, yeah, no matter what, the response time is going to also be the best on them. Now, this is actually where you're not going to get no differences between an LG and a Samsung OLED, because these are the best brands when it comes to gaming. No matter what the odds are, they're going to be pretty much the same. Like if you look here, 10 milliseconds at 60 hertz and 5 milliseconds at 120. And this TV, well, the Samsung S95B, there has been some reports that people have stated that it can output up to 144 hertz, but ratings.com did not put that on their review because there are still some S95Bs that can only do 120. So even if it does, if your model of the S95B can do 144 hertz, you will still get a lower, basically milliseconds of under 5 milliseconds at the 144 hertz refresh rate. So with that being said, that's pretty much what the different types of TVs are going to look. So I know this was a stream that we have not done in a while, but I figure this actually would have been a good stream to pretty much entertain some of you out there that do watch it and such. I'm going to see if there's even new comments or anything. And as of right now, we do not have nothing. But people's probably going to watch. So yeah. Honestly, if you are a hardcore gamer, OLED is absolutely going to be your best bet. OLED is going to give you the best picture, the best colors, the best clarity, and the best response time, the lowest input latency possible for gaming. Like everyone, like I mentioned on one of our previous videos, everybody's right. OLED is definitely the way to go. So it's been a minute since we actually did a full-on long live stream, but I hope this, guys, I hope this helps you out deciding on a type of TV that you want to get, whether if you want to get a full array, cheap budget TV, or you want to get a mini LED, or you want to get a WLG OLED, or if you want to get a Samsung QD OLED. I hope this helped you guys out on deciding which TV that you absolutely want. But this is Tech and Gaming Reviews, so I hope you guys enjoy this video. Let us know in the comment section down below if you actually do watch this stream, since we're about to end it anytime, and let us know which OLED or which TV that you own, and what model and brand it is, or if this helped you decide whether if you was going to get a full array mini LED or a OLED from LG or a OLED from Samsung. So let us know in the comment section down below if you do, however, watch this stream, and just let us know what model you actually got. But that's going to pretty much wrap it up for this stream that we have for you guys. So hope you enjoy it. rate, comment, and also subscribe. And we will see you guys on the next one. So, peace.